All right. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. And it's exactly 12 o'clock GMT here in Accra, Ghana. And on behalf of the Secretary General of the Association of African Universities, Professor Etienne Hile, I would like to welcome all of you to our 9th module of faculty online teaching modules. And we would want to welcome you once again on behalf of the guest facilitator as well. It's been an exciting 9 weeks already, or 8 weeks already. This is the 9th week, and we have been looking at very important topics under these training. Last week, we looked at understanding learning management systems, and today we'll be looking at online assessment tools. Our guest facilitator, Professor Osei Darkwa, is ready, and I'm sure that Freeman is also ready. So without wasting much time, I would like to go straight to Professor Darkwa to take over from us. We kindly ask that we keep our microphones still mute unless you are asking a question or you're making a formal contribution. If not, we kindly ask that you just keep your microphones mute as well. Thank you so much, Professor Osei Darkwa. If you can hear me, kindly take over. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thanks a lot, Chrissy. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your location. For us, it's still early morning. Welcome once again to our webinar series. As Chrissy said, today we'll be looking at the subject of assessment, specifically online assessment. We know assessment is at the core of what we do in academia. After you teach your students, you want to ensure that they've understood what you taught them. And one way to assess or to find out is through an examination or an assessment system. So what I'll do is I'll share some few slides, with you on the subject. And then my co-presenter, Freeman, will take us through the demonstration aspect. So on this note, let me see if I can, share my screen with you. Hopefully. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. All right. So let's talk about, I'll take you to some few topics, and as I said, I will do the demonstration. These are just concepts. Most of them are familiar because that's what we do. So what do we mean by assessment and all that? Most universities, there's always an examination system or process. We'll look at some few issues around that. One issue in academia, as we know, when it comes to assessment, is this notion of cheating in examination. I mean, institutions have tried, they put in place all kinds of mechanisms, but it's still going on. What are some of the ways, software that we could use to deal with that? What are the tools? And then most of us use a learning management system. Within the learning management system, there are assessment tools, so we'll look quickly at some of these tools. And then we'll look at the subject of online proctoring. It's a form of assessment, but these days we have students all over. Sometimes, synchronous assessment, where in real time, they want to monitor students. What are some of the tools that we could use to do that? And we have all kinds of websites out there dealing with all kinds of online papers. We'll look at that. And then, this notion of assessment, then my co-presenter will take over, at that time. Assessment isn't new, as I said. It's a way we evaluate our students. We want to make sure that whatever we've taught them, at least they've understood it. And then there are various forms we do it, and there are various types, So These are different definitions of assessment. I'm not going to go through all the details, but it's not new. We all do some form of examination or assessment. Now, Peros, as I said, one goal is also to use it as a feedback tool. Depending on the type of assessment, we want to at least give feedback, to our students so that they know how they fared or how they have performed. There are different types of assessments, different types, but there are three main types of assessment in the literature. The first one is diagnostic. Sometimes before you start teaching, you want to test the knowledge of your students to find out if they at least have some level of understanding of what you are going to teach them. So this is before you even start. That is why it's called diagnostic. And then formative is during the course of your teaching. Sometimes we give midterm evaluation. That is a form of formative. You want to assess the extent to which students have understood what you are teaching them. So that is formative. And then at the end, you also want to give some form of examination or some form of test. So that is called summative assessment. So generally, diagnosis is before, formative is during, and summative is after, end of semester examination. So to put it in a more pictorial form, diagnostic is, before you start, like a race, you want to see, do they have any knowledge about what I'm going to teach them? It also helps a lot. I remember I invited a guy, those who are in the computer field, to teach a course they call it some Cisco course called CCNP, Cisco Certified Network Professional. But then there's an earlier course called CCNA. The guy was going to teach CCNP, so he decided to do diagnostic. And then he realized that they don't even have the body of knowledge to build the CCNP. So instead of teaching the second level, he ended up teaching level 1. That is some form of diagnostic assessment. Sometimes it's very helpful. And then in the course, most of us give a midterm, and that is a formative, So you are still assessing their students, finding out where they are. And sometimes it also helps you to change your teaching style based on, what they've acquired. And summative is, it is over now at the end. So to what extent have the students understood what I taught them? So you are more or less judging the students. This is where you assign a grade, to the student. This is summative at the end of the semester or so. So 3 main forms: diagnostic assessment before, formative during, and summative after. I hope it's very clear. Okay. Sometimes people have used different concepts to describe the 3 forms of assessment. Diagnostic, sometimes I call it assessment as learning. Formative, sometimes assessment for learning. And summative, assessment of learning. Okay, so these are other concepts that have been used to describe the 3 types of assessment. They mean the same thing. Now we have different types of assessment depending on, the nature of your class. Sometimes we give a closed book examination where all the students, they come to a classroom and then you search them. You don't allow them to come in with books and all that. Sometimes it's open book. You can have all the books you want depending on the type of questions you ask. They may be analytical, so the books may not even help you. Multiple choice, sometimes we do that. We give essay questions, they write reports, we give them projects. Learning journal, where they will keep a weekly or monthly journal based on the subject. Presentation, sometimes your students will present and you grade them. It's a form of assessment. And then, you know, sometimes there's self-assessment. You ask students to grade themselves. I know we don't use that often, but sometimes it is done, you know. I remember yesterday, for example, I went out with my daughter to drive. And then at the end, I asked her, on a scale of 1 to 10, you know, how would you rate yourself? And then he said 7. So I said, okay, so what will it take to get the 10? And then he said, you know, my turning was not very good. My steering control was not good. You know, I didn't use my 10 signals and all that. So I said, okay, good. This is self-assessment, you know, and all that. And we sometimes use that in our classes as well. So the question is, which of these, and the other types too. You know, if you look at most of the learning management systems, they give you options, different forms. I use Blackboard. Blackboard, there are over 20 different types, you know, of assessments, which is built in. So you just select the type, and there's always a template for that. So, you know, that is how it works. Now, every university, you know, when it comes to that time, I know the academic calendar for most schools may be 14 or 15 weeks, you know, maybe 13 for lectures, 1 week for revision, 2 weeks for examination. And we all have in place, you know, systems, examination systems. Before examination, what happens? You know, you make sure that students have index numbers, you make sure they have a table and a chair, you know, and all kinds of stuff. What happens during the examination day? Of course, you know, students come in, you search them, and, you know, you have your own examination guidelines and things like that. And then after the examination, what happens? We all have protocols in place, you know. So this is why I just summarize it. It's based on what our policies and our guidelines. And in some schools, it's centralized. So like there's a registry in charge of examination and records. You know, other places is highly decentralized. You know, I teach a course at the end of the semester. You know, I will send the questions to my students. The students will take the examination, they'll send it back to me. I review it, I go to the learning management system, and then I enter their grades, and then I send a copy to the registry. It's a highly decentralized system. So it depends on your institutional policy. Most institutions, especially within Africa, they prefer a centralized examination system where they have a calendar, and then, you know, they have days and then stuff like others. It's highly decentralized. Students may not even take an end of semester. It's a take home. They submit it within a period, they assess it, and they retain the grades. Now, some of us may be familiar, you know, this is one of my, you know, favorite invigilating scenes where students will be there, and then this is a school system, and sometimes the invigilator may even to make sure that they can monitor the students very well, you know, and we continue to do this type of assessment or examination, you know. So I just decided to share this, you know, image, the way we do assessments, you know, within some institutions. We try to prevent white cheating, but we realize that it is one of the things that will not really go away. You know, we will look at some of the ways that institutions have tried to deal with, you know, with teaching. You know, it's been cheating, it's been defined variously, you know, and these are different types, you know, and I'm sure most of you are familiar, so I'm not going to go through all the details, you know, of what constitutes cheating. But it's a headache, you know, and sometimes even within graduate school, you know, you realize that students are cheating. You know, how do you deal with all that? Okay, so we'll look at that. One way is what to use plagiarism, you know, software to make sure that students have not copied documents. TURNITIN is one of the popular ones. There are a bunch of them. There's check, there's Grammarly, there's a silver sign, you know, name it. And most of these are part of the learning management system. So what professors do is that they will ask the students to submit the assignment through the plagiarism software. What are they trying to establish? What they call similarity index. And then each of the software will tell you 20%, 40%, 60% is copied. And you also have your own policy, that not more than maybe 5% or 10% or 20%. And then you have your own guidelines and stuff like that. So it's also one of the ways to deal with cheating and to do with all this. Because of all the challenges with, physical assessment or, classroom assessment, people have been trying to be creative and innovative and coming out with what we call online tests or online, assessment. So what they try to do is they automate the entire examination or assessment process, the pre-examination phase, the examination phase, and the post-examination phase. They try to remove the human element by using technology. So some schools employ what is called an examination management system. It's a special software that would automate, that would manage the entire examination process. You can see what it does. It creates notification, gives online, tickets, all kinds of stuff that you do, attendance, and even when it comes to announcing results, the whole process is automated, and it's increasingly becoming popular by most institutions, so that they don't have to deal with printing of papers and all the elaborate work that goes within the physical examination system. So it's automating the entire examination process, and that's what institutions are using. And then this takes it to this online assessment. So it becomes online instead of physical. And then, there are all kinds of tools that institutions are using today to make sure that they're able to conduct, online tests or online examination or online, assessment. Now, these are online tools. And most of these tools are free that you could use. Edulastic, is an interactive formative assessment tool. These are independent tools that you can use. You can install them as part of your learning management. You can use them as independent tools to assess Adobe Captivate, Kahoot, Radial, QP, Palette, Nearpod, Exam Time, Socrative. We've demonstrated Socrative before, and you saw how you could use that, to conduct short essay questions, true, false questions, multiple choice questions, and all that. The whole process is automated. You, as an instructor, you feed the system with the right responses. So you don't have to do anything. The students will go to the system, and then they will take the examination, and then the system will grade the examination, and then the results will come to you. So it automates the entire process. Flabaro is another tool. Even Google Forms, most of us use Google. If you go to Google Forms, we use that for surveys and all that. But within Google Forms, there's also an assessment tool. You can use that, and you can automate the entire process. And after the assessment, the system will evaluate or grade it, so that you don't really have to grade all these papers. You just feed the system. These are independent assessment tools, and most of them, as I said, they are free. You don't have to pay for them, and they work well. And as I know we review Palette, we review Socrative, and there are a bunch of others as well. Most of most professors I know use this as formative assessment, tools. You can use them to automate your examination process. Within almost all the learning management systems, and we've covered all these topics, they have assessment tools. Moodle, for example, and we'll be doing some demonstration today. Moodle has an assessment tool, Sakai, Canvas, Edmodo, Schoology, Google Forms, Blackboard, Google Sites. All these are what? Learning management systems. And they all have built-in assessment tools that you can use. And it makes life much, much easier. You don't have to go through all these manual processes and things like that. There's one aspect of assessment called proctoring. So sometimes we say to proctor or not to proctor. This is really not new. Proctoring is what? You want to monitor your students taking your examination in real time. Those who have taken VUE, Prometrics, most of the professional examinations, they are all what? Proctored. You sit behind a computer, there's a camera and all that. And somebody somewhere remotely will be what? Monitoring you, because it takes your image, it takes your ID, and stuff like that. We've been using this for quite some time, especially the professional bodies. But now most institutions are beginning to use this, and then it also helps a lot to really, when it comes to real-time assessment, that is proctoring, online proctoring. Before you can do that, there are some requirements. You need computers, you need, the software, you need some form of recorder, some webcam, and stuff like that. And then there are centers, proctoring centers. Some of these examination bodies, they have a relationship with private vendors, and then you just go there, everything is set up, you have your ID and stuff like that. You enter the system, and then you are monitored, and it's live. And immediately you click submit, it gives you your grade. So this is not new. We've been using that. But now most institutions are using them in academia to do, because it's what? Part of the learning management systems that we are using. These are tools that are built within our learning management system to what? Facilitate live proctoring. Lockdown browser, I don't know if some of you have used some of these tools. Blackboard, for example, uses lockdown browser. What it does is that it locks down your browser. Within your browser, sometimes, people go to Google to look for answers and all that. But this will lock down the browser to the test. So you cannot go anywhere, and then they have another tool called Responders Monitor. The Responders Monitor will have a webcam, so it will track your movements. And then, with that, at least is able to establish a certain level of what? Accuracy. Responders Monitor is used in addition. And there is a model, there's also lockdown. In Schoology, there's lockdown and other learning management systems. So it also facilitates what? Proctoring, live examination monitoring. Proctor.U is also another software that facilitates online proctoring. Proctoria is also another, Examity is also another, and there are others as well. These are the most popular ones built within most learning management systems. If you go within the learning management system, and I'm sure we demonstrate some of this to you so that you know how to use these tools. But the students will have to have the setup. See, that is why I said, there's a hardware requirement, there's a software requirement, and all that. And then they will what? Download the software from a link that you give to them. With that link, you can see all of the students regardless of location in real time. It's been used before, and it continues to be used as well if you are interested in online proctoring. Okay, so these are tools. Okay, sometimes people also add, regardless of all this software, people have a tendency to cheat. So that's why they call ANA code. On your ANA, you promise that what you are not going to cheat. So you will sign this code before your examination. I mean, those who have taken courses on Coursera, there's an honor code that you have to sign. You promise, and sometimes it reads like this. I pledge on my honor not to lie, cheat, or steal. Yeah, right. So that's an honest code. It's like joining the military. You promise to defend your country, sacrifice your life, whatever. It's an honest code. And we do that in academia as well. So, and most institutions have their own honor code, and the students will sign, before taking the examination. That, I'm not going to cheat, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to do this, So this is a good example from Indiana University Medical School. It says, on my honor, I have neither given nor received any aid on this exam. I would not knowingly engage in any dishonorable behavior, cheat, steal, lie, or commit any act of plagiarism during any academic work, course, or endeavor. If I observe an act which I believe violates the university honors code, I may, at my own discretion, report it to the appropriate personnel. So you sign this, and sometimes, before you are even admitted to some schools, medical school and some of these professions, you are made to sign an honor statement that this is what, like a statement of good behavior. I'm going to comport myself in a manner that is acceptable, so it's very similar. And most schools are using it these days, okay? In spite of all this, you also realize that there may be some websites where people are selling examination papers, and people are charging to develop all kinds of essay questions and tests, So, and students go there to buy. Customswriting.com, is one of those sites. Customswriting.com. Because of time, I'm not, even though I've linked all of them, but maybe during the demonstration part, we will visit some of these sites. And you see whatever paper you want, you can put it in, and somebody will send you that paper, and then you pay for it. Buydissertations.com is also another site. If you Google buydissertations.com, any dissertation that you want, somebody will send you a copy and you pay for it. Customessay.net is also another website. These are people doing online business, writing papers, and, sometimes that is why we need to use all kinds of, software to detect, some of these, sites. But these are rare websites. You visit there, people are doing business, selling papers and all that. How do we deal with all this, in view of all what we've said? It's a challenge, but institutions have devised ways to, to address some of these, issues. So I think what I'll do is I'll stop here, even though there's more slides, the benefits and cons of online assessment and all that. I want us to move into the demonstration part. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to invite my co-presenter, Mr. Freeman, to take us through the hands-on demonstration.
All right.
Thank you.
Hello, Prof. Before Mr. Freeman comes on, I have a few a slight announcement to the participant. Okay. Please, if you are having any internet lag, or the screen is blurred up, or you are having any problem, please, there are two things. It's either you switch off your video if you have it on. If you switch it off, the internet will be a bit stable for you. So please switch your video off if you are having any problem with either the screen or the presentations going on. From our side, everything is clear. So your internet bandwidth determines how you receive the presentation from your end. So kindly switch your video off if you have it on. Thank you very much, Prof.
All right, thanks a lot. So on this note, let me invite my co-presenter to take us through some of the hands-on demonstration. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Prof. Good morning and good afternoon, good evening. Prof, I'm delighted to join you for today's training session on online assessment. I'll be glad if we can visit our various online learning platforms. I don't know which one you are using in your university. If you are using Moodle, we are all good to go. Or if you are using Sakai, you can equally use the same principle on it, or even on Blackboard. So I'll quickly
So Freeman, are you sharing your screen?
I think Freeman has issues. I think he has been kicked out of the room.
Wow. Okay, maybe while we are waiting for him, let me see if I can reach out to my learning management system. I can share some few stuff before he joins it. All right, let's see.
Okay, Prof.
Is he back or no? He's not back. Okay. All right, let me see. While we wait for him, I'll see if I can share something. Let's see. I can take you to, I'll introduce you some of these tools. This is the University of Illinois portal. Of course, you always need to log in the system. We use Blackboard. You need to sign in. Okay, so this is a template for faculty. And there are a bunch of tools built in. Before I get to there, you see here they have learned about online testing, Blackboard standards online test, Blackboard test with lockdown browser. You know, if you want to use a lockdown browser, You go there step-by-step guide. Blackboard test with lockdown monitor. The monitor is a compendium to the browser. This is where the webcam is activated, and then all that students' video for lockdown browser, and then it also activates that as well. Now let me go to my courses. This semester, for example, let's say upcoming courses. Let me see if my course is listed. Yeah. So for the fall, I'll be teaching a course called Social Policy. Okay. And then if I go to the course, I'm here to actually build my course. It's just a template. Let's say, and there are multiple instructors teaching it. Okay, so this is what you see. This is the interface. Now, there are several ways. I just created this link called assessments. So in one folder, I'm going to put all my assessments in a given folder. There's also what is called tests and exams. If I want to give a test and exam, for example, I'll go here, and then you see it says at assessments. I can build a test and a survey assessment, self and peer assessment is all here. And there is tools. Echo 360 is a video platform that you can use for recording. If you want to record your assessment. Panopto quizzes. Panopto is a software that you could also use, as well. So I zoom in. I want to give my students a test, for example. This is how to create it. I can say create a test, so, and they need to name the test. So I can say, let's say just test one. And then after I say test one, then it will ask for a description. What is this test? I can say what? Formative assessment. Test one. So it's a description. And then for most tests, what do? You give the students instruction. So what kind of instruction? I can say, answer all questions. All questions. All right. And then after this, then I'll say, well, submit. This is creating my test live. So now it takes me to the test canvas. I name it what test one. And they say, well, create questions. Remember, I said there are all kinds of questions: calculated formula, calculated numeric, either or, essay type, file response, filling multiple blanks, filling hotspots, jumbo sentence matching, multiple answers. Let me see, it's a bunch of them, multiple questions. So whatever I want, I just select the type of test from here. Sometimes I may have some tests already, say reuse questions. Maybe last semester I gave a test and then I want to reuse it. I just go here and then say reuse. I'll select, there's a scroll down, say, and then I select or upload questions. Maybe I have questions that is on my computer, and then I'll put it in a format that the system can read, and I can upload those questions. I don't need to create new questions. I just modify those questions, and then it will also appear. But I can also create questions from scratch. And then, I go ahead if I want to do multiple choice questions, for example. So question title, so I can say question one. And then you go down and say question text. And then I can say, let's say, what is a capital? Is the capital of, let's say, Nigeria. So that's my question. That's question one. And then I go down there and gives you the options. And they say answering numbering. So answering now gives you all kinds of options. This is how you want the questions to be numbered. Sometimes you have 1, 2, 3, sometimes you have A, B, C. Most of them is, let me say, lowercase numbering, And then it says answer orientation. Do I want the questions to be in vertical or horizontal? Most of the time it's vertical, so vertical is selected. If I want horizontal, I just change and say horizontal. But let's say vertical is selected, and then I don't understand what they allow partial credit. Sometimes, you may give partial credit for, if the response is not the right response that you are expecting. And then show answers in random. Sometimes, you don't want the students to, all of them have like question one, what is the capital of Nigeria? And if I say, let's say Abuja, Accra, the students will see it in that order. But if I say show answers in random, a student A would see maybe Abuja number 1, Accra number 2, another student will see Accra number 1. So that is what it means by show answers in random. It's to minimize cheating. I don't know if our friend is back. And then number of answers, it
yes,
says
Prof. So Freeman is back.
Oh, he's back. Okay, let me shut down this. Okay. All right. Okay. So at least this is how, this is for Blackboard specifically. So let me go back then. So Mr. Freeman.
Oh, Prof.
I understand connectivity.
Yes, sorry, there is some few connectivity challenge. Yeah.
But before, so let me say hi to my professor, Pai Obanya. It's a long time, Prof. So take care. We've been doing a lot of training around the African continent, and then it's good to see him. All right, so take over now.
All right, thank you so much, Prof. I enjoyed your presentation also on your platform. It's quite interesting. It's the same thing, just like Prof shared on Blackboard or even on Sakai or Moodle. Most of the assessment tools are all virtually the same. It all uses the same principle, and we can equally get connected. All right, so this is our AAU page for the LMS that we can always rely on. Unfortunately, you have not been enrolled on this platform for you to test, but I will give you indulgence to log in into your university's LMS platform if you have. If you don't have, maybe you can connect and then observe and take some notes as I walk you through how some of these tools, just like what Prof was demonstrating, also works in Moodle. All right, thank you. I think last week I enrolled myself as a lecturer on this page, this LMS page, and we managed to at least upload learning resources, our course textbook, indicated our learning objectives, some videos. At least I know you managed to populate it with a lot of activities and some resources. So we ended on the activities with forum. Okay, so just like Prof indicated, and you can edit and add any resources. Of course, the first thing that you need to do on Moodle for you to create any form of assessment is to turn this editing button on. So you need to turn editing on. That will give you that privilege to edit your course page and populate it with kind of learning resources and other forms of activities. So the page you open, once you turn the editing on, you see these edit buttons throughout and you can just add anything. We learned from the presentation on the various types of assessment models and which we can use. Either you go by the formative or either by summative or whichever approach that you want to adapt, you should be able to design in such a way that it cuts across all the various assessment guide through the Bloom's taxonomy, which most of you are very much aware. And depending on the type of students that you are assessing, you should be able to also set corresponding questions that can fit into their level of understanding. For example, on the Bloom's taxonomy, if it's a level 100 where they need mostly the knowledge and some basic applications, you can end at least say level 3 or 4 on the Bloom's taxonomy. But if it's an M level, like master's level, then you'll be targeting the level 6 and upwards, so, or level 5, where they can synthesize, evaluate, and perform a lot of in-depth discussions at that level. So you can indicate any of your section as your major assessment. So you can just edit any of the section. I just want to edit this one, and then check this button and indicate. So I want to put all my assessments here. Okay, so you can indicate some descriptions here. Okay, so then you can make it just available. Then you move on further to populate in this assessment section all the assessment that you are going to give. So let's do the very first one, like a typical assignment submission. So that one, you need to add activity or resource, you remember? So if you want to add a resource like the files, PDF, PowerPoint, we use these resources. If you want to add URL, video resources, YouTube, you use these resources. But if you want to add an assignment, then you need to check on this button, say assignment. Then you click on add. You click on add. Very good. Then you can indicate your assignment name, maybe if this is, say, this is maybe, sorry, assignment 1, you indicate it here, and you can put the description here. To some lecturers, they will prefer to type the assignment here. But for example, if you are teaching mathematics, if you are teaching engineering, or even if it's a case study, you can paste all those 2.5 pages questions here in the description for the student. Okay, so here you can just provide, say, the instructions for submission, as to what they have to do here, maybe answer all questions, the due date for submission. You can just indicate it here nicely at the description. Then you can now upload the question. So you can have your question in PDF format. Then you can browse and upload it here. So if you have any assignment, you can just pick up the file and then browse on your local computer. You can browse on your local computer, pick the file. Maybe you have something on your desktop. Maybe any of these submissions. Let me just pick any file. All right. So assuming this is that, you just pick the file and say upload. Okay. Or you can just drag and drop the file here and it will equally be uploaded. Okay. Then all submissions have got a submission date and then the due date. Please always enforce that, because what will make students being serious on online platform is to adhere to strict deadlines. Else they may think that the system is there forever and they will not stick to deadlines. Always inform them on the deadline and also indicate it here. When the due date is over, you need to cut it off. So maybe you want to allow submission from, say, today, 30th July, and then you want to end it with, say, maybe 6th August. By default, it's 1 week. But you can also define which date you think they need to submit the assignment. And you have to also indicate the time. So if you want to make this assessment available from, say, 2 o'clock till maybe 2 o'clock on 16th August. Or you can just, I always prefer giving them that last minute due date, say 23 maybe 23, you can indicate 23:55 midnight. So it will ease that pressure during the day when they all want to submit, and for obvious reasons on internet, and they might not, submit. So you give them that ample time to submit. Okay, perfect. Then we also have the cutoff date in most Moodle versions and even on Sakai. So you can indicate the cutoff date. Okay, and the cutoff date, once you enforce it, it will not allow the student to submit later. But if you leave it blank, the system will still pave way for submission, but it will record it as late submission. But you can still enforce that the cutoff date should be on the same date as the due date if you want. Maybe you want the cutoff date to be on 16th, you can, like that. Or you can just indicate to the student that you are giving them maybe 2 days amnesty period or 3-day amnesty period for late submission. So after the 16th, they still have some 2 days more to submit, of which after that date, the system will be disabled for all submissions online. Okay, so if you want to wish and enforce that one too, it's also possible. And when you want to remind the system to come online to, mark, you can also set the reminder date for marking. Good. We have different forms of submission types. Most often, what most Ghanaian institutions did during the COVID-19 end of semester exams, they did the fast submission. But some institutions will also prefer to use online text. Okay, so if it's online text, then of course you have to check this online text. Then you can enable the word count that you want them to submit, say 1,000 words, and they have to come online and then type and submit online. Okay, you can indicate the site upload limit of say 250, which I know to be okay for normal submission type. But if they are going to do the work on Microsoft Word, maybe and submit it later, or in PDF and submit, then of course you have to use the fast submission type here. All right, thank you. You don't need any further settings. You can leave all these settings blank, as you can see. All right. So you do want to require the student to click on the submit button. If no, it means the system automatically fetch it once it's uploaded. Okay. So if you want to enforce it, you can say yes. Require student to accept the submission statement. Maybe you can enforce that one to see. Attempts open once attempted. So you can leave all these settings. Then you have the grading mostly by default 100. You can leave all these settings by default. Once you are done, you just click on save and return to course. Note the difference between save and display. The save and display will save it and display how the submission link looks like. The save and return to course will land you on your course page where you are populating with resources. Good. So this is how we create assignments and then activities, or maybe a form of assessment. That's just a typical example. Okay, this type of assignment will not allow the student to pass their way through a Turnitin link. So for example, when you click on say assignment 1, this is a question the student can download it, and the participants, I think I enrolled Prof on it. So the total number of students in this class, you see their names here, and then the time remaining for submission 17 days more. Once the students submit, you see the total number of students who have submitted, and you click on grade, and you start grading the work. Okay, so you see the first student, and if they submitted the work in PDF, you see their submission at the left-hand side, and then, so this is Prof. Osei Darkwa. Assuming he has submitted this work, I'll be able to see the work he submitted here at the left-hand side pane. Then I can just indicate the grade here and then provide feedback. Please take note, just awarding the score to the student is not enough for quality assessment. You have to provide feedback to the student, where he did it right, where he needs improvement, where he did it wrong. Remember, feedbacks are the only ways that students can use to grow on their academic journey. Some lecturers will just flip through this whole page and award the student 70 it will be very, very, very unfair for you to award this 70 to the student without telling the student where he did right to deserve that 70 score. Some lecturers will only just come online and then just flip through the work and put 40. What went into the 40? You have to state it and you have to give feedback to the student. And once you are done, you can perform your feedback and comment here. You can just type your feedback comment here. Make sure that the students' feedback are recorded, and once you are done, you just click on Save Changes, assuming he submitted the work. So the student will open the work, see the score, and also see the feedback from the lecturer. So this is a normal submission type. Good. I can now go back. I can go back to my course page again. Good. Engage my student with other further assessment. Okay, so for example, if they are doing this take-home exam, being it formative or whatever, you can just set it. Then I want to add another activity, and this time around, I want to enforce, let's say, quiz. I want to use quiz. Then you click on quiz. Then you click on say add. So we want to create quiz. So here you indicate the name of the quiz. So let's say this is quiz 1 that you want the student to do. You can provide some short description about the quiz here. Then you can indicate the timing of the quiz. You want to enable when is the quiz going to take place, maybe today, from this time. When do you want the quiz to close? Okay, so you want this quiz to close maybe August maybe August 4th. Then you can also indicate the time limit for the quiz. So if you want to give say to the student once they attempt say 30 minutes, you can indicate. Or if you're going to give say 1 hour, you can just indicate it here. When the time expires for the quiz, what should the system do? Do you want to open attempts to make the system automatically submit, which of course I'll recommend that with this Africa internet issues. So once the student attempt and answers maybe 18 out of 20 questions, and for obvious reasons, internet, cause some challenge, the system should be able to feed through successfully. You want to enable grace period for submission. Maybe if you want to enforce that, that is fine. But of course, if you want to open attempts are submitted automatically, then you can't get it. But you want to give a grace period when open attempts can be submitted, but no more questions answered. Then you can give the student maybe some grace period. But the nature of our students, please enforce that you have given them one, maybe some attempt, and then once the link drops, whatever they have done should be submitted automatically. You can indicate your grading options here. You can leave it here. But this is the attempts allowed. Do you want to allow 2 attempts or 3 attempts? Now, please take note of this. If you want to give the student, say, 1 attempt, then of course, you are not giving them any chance to see whatever questions again. If you want to give them, say, 2 attempts, then you should be able to have a very good question bank such that they will not be seeing the same questions again for the second time that they are going to answer. For example, if you have 40 questions and you want the student to answer all 40 questions, then you are giving the students, let's say, 1 attempt. Then, of course, the system can shuffle the questions and also allow the student to only answer it for 1 attempt. But if you want to use 40 questions and you want to accept 2 attempts, then they are going to see the question where they got it wrong. They will be able to see and then do it again with the same person, which we don't encourage that. If you want to do 2 attempts or 3 attempts or whichever, then get sufficient question bank, at least ×5 of the questions that you want to allow the student to answer. So, for example, if you have 100 questions and you want the student to answer only 20, then you can give them, say, 2 attempts if you wish. Then the system can shuffle, and then get the 20 set of questions for this student for the second time of attempting to do the quiz. But if it's the same question that is attempting for 3 times, then there's no quality assessment there. You are only telling the student to learn from the mistakes and provide correct answers. Good. The grading methods, when you allow attempts, what do you want the system to do? Do you want to strike average, or you want to use the highest score so you can indicate it? Okay, so if it's 1 attempt, then of course the highest score by default. But if you are given 2 attempts, then you can strike average, or you can use the first attempt grade, or you can use the highest grade, depending on which option you want to use. You can indicate the layout of your question. If you want every question to be on each page, you can do that. But for internet issues, I would recommend that if it's about 20 questions, you can say 10 questions on each page. Okay. So at least that one, you know that once the page loads, you can do it. So, or you can just indicate 2 questions on each page, or whatever, whichever option you want to show, or every question on any page, or 2 questions on the page. How do you want the question to behave? You want to shuffle questions? Yes, but we need to shuffle the questions and even shuffle how the answers work. And then the feedback, we have different types of feedbacks here that you want to show. Mostly you can use the deferred feedback, which is the default. If it's an immediate feedback, when the student gets it right, it tells the answer correct 1 and stuff like that. But you can use the feedback where once the student finishes the whole assessment, then it displays the score. That's a deferred feedback. There are various deferred options. You can ignore all this. In appearance, you can just ignore it. All right, so you can ignore all these options from the system. If you are teaching different groups of people, then you can add restrictions that you want to make 1 assessment available to student A, then you want to make another available for student set of B. You can ignore all these things. Once you have set up all these options ready, then you are good to go to save and say return to course. Okay. This is how we set up quiz. But you notice that we have not yet uploaded our questions for the quiz. We only set up the link for students to submit. We don't have any question yet. Madam or said, Nomsa, can you please mute your microphone? I think we are getting some distractions. Good. So if you want to perform quiz, having created the link, you click on quiz 1, the one that you just created. All right. So you see the attempt allowed 1. This quiz is open at Thursday that, and this will be closed at this date. The time limit is 1 hour. So as a lecturer, you now have to come and edit this quiz so you can populate your questions. Well, you can organize your questions in text format and then upload online, and it will equally work. There are a lot of video tutorials on how to go about it, which I can share with you. But if you have your question bank, you can just copy and paste it here and set up your quizzes also online. There are different ways of doing it. If you have question bank, you can convert the question bank into a text format that Moodle can accept, and you can upload it. Or you can just do it 1 by 1 here. All right. So you can just click on say add, maybe add new question. There are different types of assessment questions that you can rely on in Moodle. Okay. For example, multiple choice, true or false, matching, short answers, numerics, essay type, calculated multiple choice. Depending on which assessment method you want to adapt, you can equally use. All right, so let me just show you one. For example, if you want to use a multiple choice, then you click on add, you check multiple choice. So maybe that's our very first question. Just like Prof was showing on Blackboard. So you can indicate like say question 1. Okay, question 1. Then you can type the question text here. Okay. So I'll use the same example Prof was using. Maybe what's the capital? Maybe city. See, let me use Ghana this time. Then forget it's a question. You can bold it, italize it, do whichever way. Then you have here how the nature of one answer only. The student can choose one answer only. But in the event that you want the student to choose multiple answers aloud, for example, which of the following cities are in Africa? Then maybe you have Lagos, you have say Accra, then you have maybe Massachusetts, or you have, let's say, Johannesburg. Then of course, you know that the two answers are coming from the same question. So you can choose maybe Lagos, Accra. That is when you have multiple answers. All right. But if just only one answer choice, you indicate it. Then the number of choice, so you can use the ABC like Prof was showing on Blackboard, or capital A, or whichever way. So mostly you can use the ABCD type. So the first choice, for example, is of course. So let me use say Lagos. Now, Lagos is not the correct answer. So the grade here is none. Okay. Then my check.
I'm fine, Charlie.
All right. Well, assuming the second choice is say Pretoria. Can you please mute your microphone, madam? Pretoria. Pretoria is not the correct answer, so it's still none. Assuming the correct answer is say Accra, Ghana. Then, of course, you need to show the grade as 100%, because that is the correct answer. Then maybe the last choice, let's say Lagos, which is not the correct answer. Or you can add if you want to make it much more complex. Maybe Kumasi. Kumasi is not the capital. Kumasi is in Ghana, but not the capital of Ghana. All right. Once you are done with this part of question set up, for that's the first question, you just click on save changes, or you just click on save changes and continue or something like that. And you click on save changes. All right. So this is our very first question. We can add the next question. So let's add new question. Assuming this one is true or false. All right. Maybe this question is question 2. Then the question, maybe COVID-19. Maybe it's cause maybe fungi or something like that. Maybe it's cause life. All right. Then is it a correct answer? The correct answer, if it's true, you choose true. If it's false, you choose false. Of course, it's false. So you set it. It's not a fungi disease, it's a viral disease or something like that. So you click on say, okay, save changes. All right, so that's our second question. Maybe our next set of questions this time around, we also want to use maybe short answer or maybe an essay type. This time around, you can just put it in here like this. Add. Maybe here is question 3. Then you can type the question here. Maybe maybe assuming describe how computer is used to generate maybe reports or something like that. Well, assuming that is the question, this time around, you wouldn't have a concrete answer for this particular question. Okay. So you of course have to take your time to read this and award the score for this particular essay type question. Okay. So do you want to allow attempts, maybe one attempt, input box, maybe 15 lines or 20 lines, or you can leave it by the default line. Do you want the student to attach a file? If yes, you can allow maybe one attachment. Okay, but if they are doing everything here, you can just ignore it. Once you are done, you click on Save Changes. Okay. All right, good. So we have these 3 questions ready and we can launch it for our students. Okay, so maximum grade, say 10, or maybe if you want to use, say 9, or so each question can have 3 points. All right, so depending on how you want to do, you can just indicate it here. You can click on Save. Okay, perfect. Now let us preview this quiz and see how users or the student can see. All right, so this is what the student will see. This is a timed quiz. The system will give them some description. This quiz has time limit of 1 hour. Time will count down from the moment you start this. So these are, correct information that student must read. Then it will warn them, are you sure that you wish to start this? Then you click on say start attempt. All right. So the page you open like this. The system has started counting. So time left is 59 seconds and 48 milliseconds. All right. So for example, I chose the first question, say Accra. You notice it has shuffled both the arrangement of the answers. So assuming this, assuming that. Like I showed to you, if you want to show 2 questions on a page, it will show. So the next question, I'll have to move on to the next page. All right. So this is the essay type described by a computer is used. So here, the student will type here for the answer. All right. Then when the student is quite okay, you can move back and see how the whole thing looks like. When it's done, you just click on say finish attempt. So the system will say summary of attempt question answered. Then if you want to, you still have some time left, or this attempt must be submitted by this. So you still have some time left. Submit or and finish. It will prompt you again. All right. All right. So this is my resource. So you see here, your answer is correct. This answer is wrong. Here, the lecturer will have to review this submission to award the point to you. Perfect. So this is how we grade students' work by using this multiple choice. All right. Let us move back to our course page. I would love to also demonstrate to you how you can view, like Prof mentioned, Turnitin to you, and how we can establish that the submission has passed through quality submission through Turnitin. Unfortunately, Turnitin is a plugin that you must buy and integrate into your LMS platform to check for similarity indexes of student submission. So whether the work is a plagiarized work or not. Most institutions have got policies. Most institutions have got policies governing the use of this Turnitin platform. Unfortunately, the LMS platform we are having with the AAU, we have not bought the Turnitin. So I'll use another platform to show you, which is also Moodle, the one that we use at my university. Permit me to just walk you through. All right. Okay, let me refresh my page. Okay. Okay. Well, I teach a course here with electronic commerce. Let me use. I also teach heterogeneous MOI databases. All right. Well, I gave a submission link for my students to do. This is a typical example of what I showed you earlier. So this was my end of semester take-home assessment. And they did this assessment, and these were the instructions that they were supposed to follow. Now the student will have to click here to submit the work. I'll show you how to set up Turnitin links as well. So here you see all the set of students, and you see undergraduate students, how they are copying and just dumping things on the internet. So you can equally see their similarity index, which is not acceptable. Of course, some students managed to do some genuine submission. They were writing some source codes and other codes, which of course the similarity can go up. But I was not expecting these huge indexes, which is not woefully unacceptable. But there are few that has got good submissions that you can mark. Good. So how do you set up your Turnitin links when you are online? So the same way that we're doing, we can just click on, say, add activity or resource, just like what I was showing you. Then you choose Turnitin. You notice the one I showed you on the AAU page, we don't have Turnitin because we have not integrated the model. So we set up this Turnitin assignment 2. We click on, say, add. Okay. I know most institutions have not integrated it because of its cost, but most institutions have also got it. So you now set up your assignment name here. So maybe this is also your assignment 2, but you want them to pass the work through Turnitin. You put your instructions here, then the maximum number of upload you want to allow submission of any file type you can indicate. Then this is where we set up the deadline for, just like Moodle. Okay, but this one will have to pass it through Turnitin to check for originality reports. All right, so you can allow submission after the due date. No, if you want to still allow, you can choose yes. That will give you. You can leave every settings here by default, and then you click on save and return to course. And of course, your Turnitin link will be created for you, for the student to submit through it. Okay. So you notice that the link has been created here. Okay. The difference between this type of submission and the normal assignment submission button is that you see this is the normal submission button here, the one that we just created here. Maybe the 9 students and 9 of them submitted. But the Turnitin on is quite different. It's different. So this is how that one also looks like. So when you open it this way, you see all the students' name here. Then you see their submission boxes here. Okay, and you just click on to grade. I want to demonstrate to you how you can also perform marking and feedback also on Turnitin. Especially most institutions have adapted the Turnitin as their sole tool for performing assessment. Then, of course, you can rely on some of these tools to mark online as well. All right, so when you click on this, the link, you will see it and you see the list of students. I created 2 parts, 3 parts, and you can just see the kind of questions and everything, the instruction that they are supposed to go about it and stuff like that. Well, let me begin with this, for example. Let me see, Alhaz and Wahab submitted this work. To see the originality report for this, you need to click on the color-coded options here. So that will generate the similarity report for you. Of course, the report is ready, but you need to click on to view. So you click on the color-coded, color code assigned to the percentage there to open the Turnitin submission. All right, so it's currently generating. Within a matter of few, like a minute, it should be able to get generated. All right, so that is the institution, that's my name, that's the course, and that's the part one. So they were supposed to discuss data normalization and perform some queries on their system. And so that is maybe this student submission. And I can equally mark this on Turnitin, having read the work. Okay, there are different ways of handling this. You can just click on and then put, assuming if I want to annotate on this, maybe question one, I'm going to award maybe 5 points. So I'll just click on this and then maybe say award, say 5 points. You see, I can annotate. Maybe question two, I want to annotate and award this particular 1B, maybe having read it, say maybe 7 points out of say 10. When you are done with all these annotations and then as indicated all the points that the student scored, you can put the overall score here, say 67. But before you issue this 67 here out of say 100, assuming that is what the student did, you need to, I think there are a lot of noise there. Let me mute. All right, good. Before you will have to indicate to the student that the student got 67, you have to provide feedback for the submission that the student did. So here you have to type your feedback comment here. Okay, general comment or general. You can have a template. You know, we are all, lecturers, and we know most students do similar mistakes. So you can just have a common template and you can just copy and paste it. But some students have peculiar issues where you have to read and modify your feedback. Okay, so to lessons most of this job, you can have your marking rubrics ready, okay, which will guide you as to what to do. So for example, if a student mentioned that assertion is mainly used to specify whatever, what does this explanation connote on my marking rubric? You know the point you are going to give if the student satisfied this submission. Then you indicate the point and the associated rubric that the student will have to know, you just copy it and modify it and paste it here. Okay, maybe student demonstrated comprehensive, whatever, then you can just indicate it here. Let me also show you that, for example, if a student described this, maybe assertion is that, and he's quoting somebody and he needs to indicate reference, you can just use some of this inbuilt functionality to tell that maybe a quick mark says citation is needed for this work, which you need to. So there's no need to be typing all these things. By default, Turnitin has got some of these, sample source that the student can read. You can also create your own marking rubrics by using the quick mark. All right, I can come down here and maybe it's talking about transactional databases. And if I want to give quick mark or I want to just comment about this, I can just click on this and provide and add my comments here on the particular submission that they do. I can convert it to quick mark as well. Okay, then anytime that I need to invoke similar mistake that students have done, I don't need to type it. I can just invoke it and then I can just use it. For example, maybe let's say test. I will just save it. All right. Okay, so it will be part. It's going to be part of my quick mark here. I just added one here. This is XXXX. So this is a test that I did. All right. So for example, if say this particular point, I need to provide same comment that I provided for one student, I'll just indicate here with a quick mark. I have done comment for test, so no need to repeat it again, and I'm just good to go. All right, so this is how we mark online also via TURNITIN. Once you are done, you can just put your point here for the student. Then you move on to the next student, and then you start blank marking as well. And you can provide feedback for this particular student as well. So don't only open your page and put the score here, 23, without telling the student what went into the 23. Then of course you are not doing due diligence, and you have to do quality feedback, and you have to also provide them with comprehensive marking rubric. You know, there is one thing that I just want to highlight. Most of us prepare questions for assessment without granting that opportunity for students to know what will require them to pass your assessment. It is very, very, very important. I just want to show you one, then I'll maybe briefly end I'll briefly end my demonstration. I'll just show you one that I did, and then maybe we can also learn from it with one of our master's program that I recently facilitated. Database, I taught that one. Okay, so this assessment, and this is a typical assessment, the question that I shared for the student, just to make it available to you. All right. And this was the link for the student to submit. Okay, so let me stop sharing this screen and share with you this one on how the assessment looks like. All right, so this is a typical example of an assessment task that highlights every aspect of your learning outcome and what you want the student to be assessed on. So for example, this particular assessment is going to cover the model learning outcome 1 to 4. I've indicated to the student and they know. So I have my first question here, and it's a take home, and it's about 200 words submission. So this is a take home. Then the questions follows, you know, the database questions followed, the questions followed, the questions followed, the questions followed. Then I indicated to them that if I include your answer, whatever, we can put it on a drive and upload it. No late submission. And I have given them the 0 policy rate. So at least the student will know what is required of them to answer this to pass the submission. Okay. I've also highlighted to them areas that they are going to be assessed on. And since this was a master's level questions, the type of questions should also be at the M level. So they cannot just Google and then just, you know, paste the answer for you to just mark. All right. So this is a typical example of the assessment guide. And then this was their submission. So since it was a graduate submission, so you can see their similarity index were very, way low. And I finished marking this particular work. For example, this student got 42 out of 100. Although the similarity index was 7, but it was not a good submission. Okay, so for example, just to demonstrate to you this particular student work, it has passed through TURNITIN. I've checked the quality submission. It has not been plagiarized. It's of good standard. I will now have to see the quality submission of his model, and I provided my feedback on the submission, and then you'll be able to see. All right, so you noticed my comment here, the total score for this. I indicated the student has demonstrated an outstanding understanding of the theoretical and practical issues relevant to the database. So this is a feedback. And the student has demonstrated an adequate understanding of conceptual and technical to use in design and implementation of effective database system. This is well demonstrated by the UR diagram the student indicated. And the student also, so this is a typical and have signed. Okay. The student's submission was lucid and excellent. So at least there is some level of feedback as to why I gave this particular student 84. And these are some of the points I gave, say 12 points for this. And let's say this 9 point, having read it. So it gives that comprehensive nature of delivery, and you can also perform quality feedback. Prof, I would love to pause here and entertain some questions whilst I walk.
Exactly. I think, yeah, we need to pause and then do the Q&A session because we've been talking for 1.5 hours, actually, and that's a lot.
All right.
So
Thank
back
you so
to
much.
Kwesi and
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. I think it's been fantastic. We would open the platform to those who have questions. If you have any question, kindly let me see your hand up. I will enable your microphone, and then you go straight. So first, we'll pick Oluwayemisi. If I got the name right, kindly, you have the floor. Just brief. Oluwayemisi, if you are there. Okay, let me pick Professor Tanlang. Professor Tanlang, if you can hear me, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good
Yes,
evening.
good evening, Prof.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Freeman. A wonderful presentation. What do you do with an assignment that has been plagiarized? You go ahead and mark it and then give grades? Or what do you do with that? Especially the one that the plagiarized document is so high. Thank you.
All right, thank you,
Okay.
sir. Mr. Freeman, can we pick about 4, then you can answer all of them?
All right, that's fine.
Thank you. All right, so let me pick Christopher, Toby. Toby, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Freeman, for the wonderful illustration. I'm quite excited how you illustrated the use of Modular. I've been using Modular for the past 3 years myself, and it has really turned out quite great. I don't know if you have tried using the SCORM package on Moodle.
Yeah.
I would really love to see if you can illustrate how to use the SCORM package, because it really comes out quite handy and very easy and interactive for the students. Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
thank you very much. Let me pick that of Abiodun Ayeni. Please go ahead. Abiodun, if you can hear me. Okay, if Abiodun is not ready, Victor Okore, please, you have the floor.
Hello, I'm ready.
Okay, Abiodun, go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Mr. Freeman. Thank you for that presentation. My question again is still on cheating in the exam. I think it will link with a little with what the professor has just asked about plagiarism. But what about if a student, because of the length of time given to them to do this exam, and then the student gets to, cheat, not maybe using things from the net, maybe using something which has not been published. How can, if there's a plagiarism test, how can the plagiarism test dictate that the student has cheated? Thank you.
All right, thank you. And finally, on this session, we want to take Victor. If you are still there, please take the floor. Victor Okori.
Hello.
Yes, Victor, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. I must thank the presenters for the wonderful presentation. My question is similar to the ones that I've asked, but it's modified. We have cases in which the plagiarism check, when you look at it, it is either coming from the already submitted document. For instance, if I submit my assignment as a student and I put a particular reference and another student use the same reference, when people have used the same references, when we run the Turnitin, it tends to go and bring all the references, including the one that I've submitted, and use it in calculating the similarity index. So how do we configure the system to, or how does the system help us to understand the nuances, the various level at which the supposedly plagiarism has occurred?
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Freeman. Please, you can answer these questions, and after we'll take the second batch and conclude. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I think I will start with the Professor Tanga's question, the very first question. Well, how do you deal with plagiarized submissions? I will say that we need to have a policy on student plagiarism submissions on your university's LMS platform. For example, here in Ghana, my university, the plagiarism index is pegged at 20% for all assessment for the graduate school and then the undergraduate school, 20%. So any submission above 20%, you will be notified and called to what we call the academic disciplinary committee. So if you fail to comply the 20% index, then of course, your work will not be marked. Sometimes we provide some small, mercy on students who submit around 21, 22, 23, thereabout. But we've pegged the system around 20%. Any submission above 20% or 25% is rejected, and the students are also penalized. It's either the student will forfeit that work or will have to repeat the whole module again. And the students are aware of these punitive measures, and your institution must enforce that. That is one. And then two, on the same plagiarized work, the question that the last person asked. Yes, our students are very smart. I will show you a typical example. How do you beat Turnitin? It will take a smart person to catch a thief, So, for example, how can I bypass submissions on the system? Like most students, Turnitin reads all text in a database and compare it to a worldwide repository where you compare text submitted through Turnitin. So, for example, if I submit this text, let's say 2,000 words, and it's available online, and another person also submit another work, let's say 1,000 words, and within that 1,000 words is picking about 10% or 20% of the work that I submitted earlier, then of course you get your work being plagiarized because it has found some similarity levels in another submissions, and it is equally not acceptable. Most of the times undergraduate students, we spare them. So mostly you go and find some of these students copying each other, especially those in the mathematics and then those in the engineering. For example, how do you check plagiarism of a student where you have given an equation to prove why x, and maybe as s approaches y, x is equal to say 1. And every student is generating these things using a formula. How can you differentiate the submission by one student from another student? Are you going to punish them for copying each other? Of course, you can't say that because it's mathematics and you are supposed to get quite similar submission by most of the students, else you mark everybody wrong because you are going to mark per method. But there are some questions that Turnitin can easily handle without post-technical and those post-programming courses. For example, if you are given an essay type question, which is not something Googleable in code, then of course you can get individual submission which will not be plagiarized. But if you ask a question, for example, what is a compiler? You ask this question to a student, it's obvious that you can get about 70% of the students submitting the same work because the answers will be the same. They all Google and submit. But if we are telling the student that describe how compilers can be used to interpret SQL queries, then you have to think and come up with something that will be unique for submission. So the question type also infer on how quality the submission can also even happen on the Turnitin platform. So lecturers must also bear in mind with that. But of course, you need to get a policy, your Turnitin submission policy, to avoid all these things. With published work, it is no, 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 no. All published work can only be cited, or at a point you can paraphrase portion and reference, not to just dump a published work you think is good and then you submit. I want to give a typical example. A doctor, one of these health students, there was a question that described what it meant by anaresia nervosa. Then that was a question. And then every student went online and then just copied this and submit. One medical student came to the teacher and said, "Are you marking me wrong? The answer that I've given you is the correct answer." But the teacher is saying, "Your answer is plagiarized." And he said, "What? How can it be wrong when the thing is on the internet?" How do you deal with such a situation? You see, but so far as the question was just a Googleable type question, then they will be getting some of these things. Although the answer is right, but the mode of submission is wrong and it's also not acceptable for quality submissions. So the colleague who asked of the SCORM package, I think I will demonstrate to you briefly. The SCORM package is a very good tool to also use. Maybe I'll just highlight it. The SCORM package stands for what we call Shareable Content Object Reference Model. We least use it on Moodle, but I think you can also try and use it. But most people don't use the SCORM approach. But it's a very interactive tool that you can give assignment so the student can submit through the SCORM model, just like the assignment submission type. Let me just show you how the SCORM package looks like, maybe briefly. Then yeah, so this is the SCORM. Let me move back a little bit. So okay, so let's say I want to add an assignment or maybe an activity, and that is we have assignment here, and then we also have the SCORM package. Okay. So here you can have all contents displayed pop-up window, and you can organize this nicely so the student can submit through this assessment tool. So you can just click on say add. Right. Then you indicate the title, maybe the SCORM activity 1. Maybe SCORM activity 1. You can put the description here, and you can upload the package file here. You can just browse and upload the package file here. You then indicate the availability when you think you want to allow this submission to be available, and how do you want the appearance to also. You can indicate all these submission, just like the assignment type. Then you can also grade them. How do you want to grade them? Once you are done, you just click on save and return to course. And then the SCORM package link is also is made available. You see, it requires, since I'm going to use it, it's require me to upload a zip my package file. So if there are other files, I can just pick up the file and then maybe, assuming I want to use this SCORM, then you are just good to go. So we can also use the SCORM package, and then you can use it for assignment submission, and the student can also submit from it. All right. Thank you so much. And I believe maybe I've answered. The package is not compact, but you can get it in an XML format and it can still work out for you. All right. All right, thank you. So I can move on to the next set of questions.
All right, thank you very much. And let's pick this from Professor Aderemi. Professor Aderemi, if you can hear me, you kindly ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Freeman, for a very wonderful presentation. I'd like to ask, how do you ensure that it is actually the students that provided the answers to the question? I mean, for example, I have a quiz to answer or an exam to take, and I send a link to somebody I know will be able to answer the question for me. How do you ensure, is it possible for you to record the picture of the person actually answering the question? Like I did an English test, organized by the IELTS, and they were able to record my video while I was doing the test. And then they also now put the picture on the certificate. So is it possible to determine who is actually providing the answers to the question using this platform? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And Mr. Freeman and Prof, we have a few questions coming from the chat. I think about 4. I'll quickly add them. Number 1 coming from Emmanuel Anko. He's asking, how do you ensure that students who do not cheat, how do you ensure that students do not cheat while answering the questions, especially during summative assessment? And coming from Joyce, do the learning management systems allow for embedding text-based collaborative learning tasks as assessment pieces, or one has to use other digital tools outside the LMS? This from Dr. Pitiko. How do we reduce the similarity percentage in cases where the same document is submitted to Turnitin for the second time? And the last coming from Indirangu, he's also, I think he suggests a submission. He's saying that at the University of Nairobi, Turnitin report should be below 15%. So these are some of the questions that are in the chat button. So Prof and Mr. Freeman, please, over to you.
All right, maybe Prof, will you handle the first one?
Okay, the first one, yeah, in terms of ensuring that is the right student who is taking it. Yeah, sometimes I know this has been one of those issues. That is why if you've taken any course on edX, before you even start taking the, the assessment or the course, they'll ask you for your ID. Sometimes your driver's license or your passport. So they have to see that you take a picture. And then you take your own portrait as well. And then in addition to that, there's also an honest quote to say that it is you, who is doing it. These are measures to ensure that, to establish the identity of the person who is taking the test. And most of the professional examination bodies, that's what they do, as you rightly described. So there's an honest quote, there's your ID, and even samples of your handwriting too, of your typing. How you type is also recorded to ensure that this is you, but not any other person. So these are measures that have been established to ensure that it is the same person to establish one's identity. And I think that is care of that. Thank you.
All right. All right, thank you, Prof. And then also to add up, I think like Prof shared during his presentation, there are Proctor tools that, please mute your mic. Like Prof shared, there are Proctor tools that we can use. Here in Ghana, I remember one of our online exams, we took the student to a wide variety of room, and we installed some of these cameras around to check that all submissions are duly submitted by them. But if it's a typical formative submissions or model, then you need to install that the Proctor authentication model in your model. Of course, you need to get those plugins in your system to check for all online submission. But if it's a typical formative and they are supposed to construct their own knowledge and do it, it has always been a disadvantage online. For example, you gave me this assessment and I gave it to a brother or a friend who is very good to submit for me. Then he did the work, gave it to me, and I submitted by myself. It will be very difficult for me to establish whether this particular work was done by me or by someone else. Although it will pass through Turnitin, all right, to check similarity, but it will always be very, very difficult to check. So the only way that we can use, some lecturers will prefer that even beyond the formative type, you do what we call individual reflective reports. Individual, and in one of my class, that is what I did. Because at the point, I noticed most of these students are getting very good points for their formative work. So I later on required the student to generate what we call their individual reflections on their submission. And I got quite an interesting feedback from the student. This is a typical example, maybe just to show you one of some of these things. It is a way to curb some of these things, because you will think that the students are supposed to do it. They will do it all right, but I still require you to provide individual reflection through Turnitin, which will require you to submit your report based on the questions that I have asked. And some of these questions are questions that you have to provide answers for yourself. Even you see here, it is still individual, but some people were still Googling it on the internet. But you will still see some people doing due diligence in their submission. And you can just click on and view how the person inferred on the submission. So of course, cheating will be something difficult to combat it, but with the right technologies and tools to use, we can always avert some of these things. And also, you can use the summative assessment type as also another avenue that will also come in to solve some of these issues of being plagiarized or being copied from their work. So this is a typical example of individual reflection that I ask my student to provide. So I would now be able to build my own. So then I know that learning is taking place. Of course, if you give this thing to somebody, the person might not even write it as very good as you experience in the class. Then I think there was also a question on the text-based type. Yes, Moodle and other LMS platform allows text-based assessment. And again, with the multiple choice questions, which I would also recommend, some people, for some obvious reasons, look down upon multiple choice questions. I can tell you that multiple choice type questions are equally good assessment tool to some level. And we can rely on some of these, especially when you have a very good question bank. Matching, multiple choice, long essay, they are very good tools. But especially our friends in the area of engineering and computing, we mostly look down upon some of these submissions. They think that it's a low level assessment type, but they are very good assessment. For example, if you are giving the student say 350 question bank and you're allowing them to answer only 50 out of the 350, look at the complexity level. And you can shuffle the questions, you can shuffle the answers, and you can shuffle the entire arrangement. So somebody's question 1 is somebody's question 64 or question 34. Somebody's question 34A is somebody's question 38, maybe D. So that complexity levels are also there. And if it's a text-based tool, which are time-bound, you can equally do it. Lastly, the time for submission is also very critical in online assessment. For example, you have given the students 30 questions and you have given them 3 hours to submit online. And it's a real-time synchronous engagement. the question is, how do you want the student to submit this work in 3 hours for 30 questions? Of course, they are going to copy. So I can just spend, let's say, 10 minutes on a question, Google and get the answer and submit. So you have to also close all these gaps and make sure that the student don't have any option to, meander around to copy. Of course, those of you who have, schooled in the Europe and US, they are open book assessment. Even those ones are even very much difficult than the typical summative type assessment because of the nature of assessment. So the type of question that you also set and the time allocated for it should be measurable. Always consider the SMART method for assessment, okay? The SMART. And then you have to always make sure that your assessments are well put. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Freeman. We have 4 minutes to go, but I still see Samson's hand up. Samson, can you just make it very quick for us? Then we can wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, in the aspect of Turnitin and plagiarism check, as a plagiarism record of, let's say, 50%, and the reference alone carries 30%. And we as publishers and even as students also, we make use of reference to other materials. Suppose we make use of the same material, but we got our citation from different pages and so on. Definitely our references are going to be the same. Can't we make a deduction of the percentage that accounts for references from the entire plagiarism percentage, and so that the remaining one will be entirely for the actual work done? Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Again, let me demonstrate this to you. Turnitin provides that support. For example, let me open this student work here. The similarity index is 22, but the acceptable is 20. Now, at our end, some institutions, some of our transnational partners takes up to 10, like some of the Indian and stuff like that. So here we have options here called filter. Okay, let me just show this to you. Here you can exclude quotations. Now, let me give you a tip bit of some students, what they do online. Turnitin, you can ignore quotations. Quotations are good academic writing styles, especially when you are quoting from somebody. The trick that some students use to bypass our system is that they mostly put inverted commas at the beginning of their text, their first question, and the end of their whole question. This is what the students are doing. So if they took it from online, they will just put it in inverted commas and change the color of that inverted commas in quote into white color. So the background, the word background, and then the text of the inverted commas are all white. Turnitin will ignore it, will not see it because in quote, because here you can exclude quotations and it will not read it. And students are using it to bypass the system. To some of us, we are more than smart to catch all these anomalies in the system. Then some students also will copy the same text. You know what they will do? They will convert all the text that they have done, like this text, put it in an image format, and they will insert it into the web page with white background, everything, but it's image. So when Turnitin is reading it, it will bypass it because it will see it as an image rather than text, and it cannot read the text in there. Since Turnitin will do everything in PDF, as a lecturer, you can't see it. So these are critical aspects, and this is how some of the students are using to beat around the clock. Putting inverted commas, white background, white font, putting their text in image and inserting without borders, and you see it exactly as it is. And these are typical examples. For example, if you want to ignore bibliography, you can just exclude quotation and exclude bibliography. If I want to really know the Turnitin report, then I can just click on apply changes. You notice that this student was getting about 22% or something like that. But now it's 20% when I excluded the quotations and then the bibliography. So if I want to mark, like this student was spared because when he was on the borderline, of course, some of the templates and some of this guide will contribute to some of these submissions already. Okay, so these are, practical, issues that revolves around the use of Turnitin. So you can ignore the quotation, but even ignoring the quotation doesn't contribute much to the whole work if the work is plagiarized. You see, so some people think excluding that will solve the problem. That is not the case. Well, it contributes to some percentage, but if you have a work of say 40%, ignoring the bibliography will not contribute anything significant to reducing the index. You just have to do quality work. Thank you.
Sorry, sir. That of references, can we deduct percentage that account for referencing in the list of references?
Yes, that is what I'm saying. When you ignore the bibliography, it will ignore it. It will not read it.
Okay.
If you ignore it, like this lady's work, when I ignore the bibliography, I think it reduced by 2%.
Thank you.
Yes, but if the whole work is not good, it's not good. Reducing the bibliography or the reference list wouldn't account for anything significant. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Freeman. Can I just make a very short comment, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
In a situation whereby a student writes a text on Word and then decides to screenshot the text, yes, and then paste it on another Word document and converts to PDF. Now, yes, it's no longer a text; it's now a picture, yes, on that document. Do you think Turnitin will be able to dictate the similarity index because it's no longer a text; it's now a picture, but converted to a PDF file?
Yes, that is what I said earlier. The Turnitin can't read that text. Turnitin cannot read images. It can't read images. It can only read text. So this student will just bypass Turnitin. But to us with my institution, there's a strong policy again. Once you do that, then you are intentionally performing examination malpractice and you'll be sanctioned or rusticated. It's against academic quality. So we need to have policy for that. And else the student will bypass it. I know before I came in, that's what most students were doing to bypass the system. But we should not allow that. And there should be strong policy on that. I know there are some, quite recently, some students submitted their thesis and they just need to submit, and it was pulling by 15% of a work from a certain paper. They converted it to image, screenshot, pasted it, converted it to PDF and submitted it to the lecturer. The lecturer saw similarity index 10%, thinking that it's a quality work, not knowing 15% of the work plagiarized. It was image. Such student must be penalized, else the assessment will not be rigorous enough. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Freeman. Thank you, Professor Darkwa. Prof, we'll come to you for your final words, then we'll give announcements and we will call it. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Well, assessment, as we all know, is a very important area. And this is, most institutions are moving to online assessment because we use learning management systems and all of them have inbuilt assessment tools. The university's policy is critical, as Mr. Freeman said. It all depends on your institutional policy. Students will always find a way to beat, the system. That is why sometimes if you are in doubt, you invite the student to do oral presentation about his or her work. That is also another way, to check some of these cheating, and all that. But it's not easy to eliminate cheating, even in the virtual environment. So you need to really train yourself, to detect all these ways that students want to use. But I hope you've learned something today. We will continue, and next week we have a session on file sharing tools. We always share files with our students, with our colleagues, and all that. So what we do is we just point use of few tools. We do a demonstration as we always do, so that at least you know some of the critical tools to use in your work. So on this note, again, let me thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope to see you next week as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Darkwa. And on behalf of Professor Healy, I would like to thank you for making time for us every week, and then also thank our guest facilitator, that is Mr. Freeman, as well, and all our distinguished participants. These are a few announcements. Number one, next week we will still be using the same link, and so please, you can share the link with other colleagues who would want to participate in the training as well. It is still the same link. We wouldn't change it at all. We have arrears of the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, and the 3rd and 4th recorded videos. We'll be sending that in the course of the week as well. We are still working on them. We'll send them to you in the course of the week. PowerPoint slides for today, we sent it in the morning when we were sending reminders. If you didn't receive it, we'll still resend it to you. Certificate, we will be working on certificate next week, like I indicated last week. I have given the link for everyone to register. If you would want to be certified at the end of the training, kindly make sure that you put down or you type in your correct name that you want to appear on the certificate. Please send it to the link and we'll work on that. For payment, we will send invoices when we are sending the PowerPoint slides and the recorded version. Some of you are asking for bank accounts, others are asking for alternative forms of payment. We'll put all of them in the email for you to choose the best out of the options. And so if you have any queries, any question at all, please kindly write an email to us. My email is kasam@aau.org and we'll respond promptly for you. On this note, may I thank everyone for participating in today's lesson. We look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
next week.
Bye.
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 We appreciate you and your presentations. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for the
Bye-bye.
Don't work for you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye to everybody.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.